How can it be that the collaboration between the social partners of Norway's working life is less like a boxing match and more like a dance? How do they handle strikes, demonstrations, and discontent? And why do they even bother to cooperate when the social partners have such conflicting interests? I am proud to invite the most powerful people in the Norwegian working life to answer these questions. From our government, the Minister of Labour herself, Mrs. Hadia Tajik, and the boss of all of Norway's bosses, Ole Erik Almlid, Director General of the Confederation of Norwegian Enterprise. Peggy Hessen-Følsvik, Secretary General of LO, the biggest and most powerful confederation of labor unions. Welcome.
Thank you.
First of all, a difficult word, the tripartite collaboration. Each of you have different approach to it, and you have a conflicting interest in it. Yet you have to work together. Why do you all think this is the right way to manage our working life? Let's give you a few sentences each, Mr. Almlid or Ole Erik, which is more Norwegian way to address you by your first name. As the head of the largest organization for employers and the leading business lobbyist, what's in it for you?
Thank you, Linda. Actually, this model, this tripartite collaboration, is a construction that has served Norway very well for over decades. And it serves Norway very well today, and maybe for 50, 100 years in front of us. It's a model that have given us high levels of employment, low levels of conflicts, and have made business able to adapt new technologies, new markets. And for us, it's also a model who is paying off. We see it on the bottom line, because less conflicts is very good news for Norwegian business. It's a more stable system. We see that the Norwegian business is more competitive in the international market because we have mutual interest in making our business competitive. So I think it's a good model for the government, for the union, and for NHO. And I love this model, really.
So, in other words, you say it pays more off for the bosses to do it like this?
Yeah, I think you have to have a system where everyone thinks it's a win-win-win system. And this system is very, very good for Norway. If we go back to the 30s, we have between 100 and 200 conflicts every year.
So a lot of strikes.
A lot of strikes. No dialogue. Today, much dialogue, much trust between us. I think that's good news for Norway. And it's very important for Norway when we, the next years, and the year in front of us, shall meet the crisis, the climate crisis. We shall secure jobs. We have a rapidly change in the working life and the business. And for Norway, this Norwegian model, this tripartite collaboration is very important for Norway today and the year in front of us.
Mrs. Hessen, or Peggy, what's in it for the workers that you are representing? You are representing workers in all fields in 25 different trade unions in Norway.
Well, I think, first of all, it's a possibility to make sure that I have the influence for my members, both to secure sustainable jobs, to secure a decent working life, to secure high incomes and a good welfare state. So to me, this is an important way to cooperate on a three-level platform. But I think what is also important to understand with this model is that the two-party collaboration, whether it is between the shop steward and the director, the management at the actual plant or the actual working place, or it's the two-party collaboration also between me and Ole Erik, and if needed and if wanted, then we connect also the third party here. So it's the system in total, I think, that is important to me. First and foremost, to secure the income and the workplaces for my members.
Hadia, What does the government get out of this model?
It makes perfect economical sense. That's what the government gets out of it. I mean, having proper working conditions and a well-organized labor market, it contributes to us having some of the most productive workers in the entire world. I think OECD has rankings on productive workers, and Norway has been second in those rankings for quite a few years, which is a compliment to the well-organized labor market in Norway, to LO and to NHO. At the same time, it makes economical sense because building trust, having social cohesion in a society is very efficient, not only on an individual level, but also on a company level, on a governmental level. It reduces social conflicts. And building that kind of consensus and trust among the social partners also contributes into the policy making. It makes our policy suggestions, our regulation suggestions better because we get an opportunity to listen each other out at an early phase of creating new regulations and making the amendments needed in order for the regulations to be efficient.
But shouldn't employees and employers just be able to fix their problems on their own without government interference?
Oh, but they do all the time.
Yeah.
Most of the time, they fix their own problems, they have their own dialogue, and most of the time the government is not needed. But on some areas, the government is needed, especially when it comes to national policy, regulations, changes in legislation, or certain kinds of conflict resolutions. But most of the time, it's not even necessary for the government to be a part of the discussion.
Would you like to comment on that, Erik?
The three of us is very agreeing on this. But if you see the collective bargaining, it's very important that Peggy and myself has this collective bargaining without the government. But sometimes we invite the government to the table, and that's important. And in other issues, political cases like energy and labor work, education, it's very important that we three are sitting together. But when it comes to collective bargaining, it's very important that it's up to us.
Yeah.
But Hadia, representing the government, wouldn't it be tempting just to make the rules and force these two organizations to follow them?
That would be very short-sighted.
Yeah.
Maybe it would give results in a very short period of time, but when it comes to long-term efficiency, building trust, knowing each other, having the dialogue, when it comes to creating regulations is the best way to go forward, in my opinion, especially considering the fact that in the next decade we have huge challenges for our society that we need to deal with. Demographical changes, but also climate change. And in order to be able to find the right solutions on these areas, we need to collaborate closely with the workers themselves and with the employers.
Conflicts are inevitable. The workers want higher salaries, the employers want to keep more of the profits, and both sides want more from the state or the government than the government might be willing to give. So you have conflicting interests. It can't always be as easy as it seems now. So what are the agreed upon rules when conflicts do arise? Would you like to start, Peggy?
Well, I think that's one of the important things with this Norwegian model. So I used to say that we have rules, even how to behave when we don't agree.
Yeah.
So that's a set of regulations, rules and regulations that we have developed through the last 120 years, as it was said here. 70 years ago, we were one of the poorest countries in Europe. We had the most days lost in strikes. So the sets of regulations and rules that we have built together through negotiations that also tells us how to behave when we do not agree is something that I think we both hold high and respect. But it's also a set of institutions that are also a part of the model, that is official institutions like the mediator, if we don't agree. So we have actually also built a set of institutions together with the government that helps to guide us when we really get into conflicts, which we do every now and then. We do, but it's easier also, I think, to build trust when you know that you have rules on how to behave when you are in conflict.
But how do you tell your own members they can't have higher salaries?
I always work for higher salaries for my members, but as one of my union leaders says, we will never bargain ourselves out through the factory doors. So this is to find the right balance between sharing the values that we create together. It has although been the way that we have achieved, I think, good working conditions and also a high level of income in Norway. So it is really a win-win situation for all.
But I'm sure a lot of your companies wouldn't want to give as high salaries as Peggy is asking for. How are you convincing your own organizations to follow the rules of conflict?
Because this system serves everyone. And we have, if you see this in a historical perspective, we can see that we in Norway or in the Nordic countries, which has the same system, we see we have good economy, we have growth, we have good welfare. And this system has made that happen because we are loyal to the system. Okay, sometimes we have to raise the salaries, which is also good for the companies because they can have the workers working there for all their life. But sometimes we have to think we can't get higher with the salaries because it will make business coming out of the competition in the world. So this is a balance every day, every week, and every year. And we fix it every year. And look at Norway. It's a country where people have jobs, secure jobs, which is very important for everyone.
Hadia, what does the government do when the workers decide to go on strike?
There's a set of regulations on how to deal with such a situation. The state mediator, for instance, has to be notified, and he or she may prohibit the stoppage of work until compulsory mediation has been tried out. And if mediation is terminated without a result or without a proposal for a new agreement or a proposal is rejected, a strike or a lockout may take place. But then again, there is a regulation that says that if a strike or a lockout causes serious damage to society, then the government can present a special act to Parliament and end the work stoppage. And the dispute must then be resolved by an arbitration board called Rikslønnsnemnda. But the decision to ban a conflict and invoke the National Wages Board is quite seldom done. And the bar for actually doing this is quite high. I mean, serious damage to society means that most strikes and most lockouts would not cause that kind of damage. So it's only in only in certain situations where the government needs to take a few steps in order to resolve the conflict through the National Wages Board.
So the government almost never or seldom stops the strikes. But how do you guys trust each other?
I trust this too because I think in Norway, we are very few people in Norway. And I think we often have some common interests. Maybe we can have a discussion how we come there. But if you see the energy problems we have, we're working together to find a solution which serves everyone. The same if you see the education. We really need our workers to have the right education. Then we work together. So I think that it's a trust. It's a key element in this conversation. Actually, it's a key element in this structure.
I think it's important that you build trust when you're not in conflict.
Yeah.
And as Ole-Erik says, we have a lot of different subjects that is important to us to work together on. We are in the middle of a green shift when it comes to energy, which gives us huge challenges in the future. So who is more close to discuss how to solve those challenges than the two of us as head of our organizations, and also to involve the government in that kind of problems, how to solve this country's challenges. That's when you build trust, and then you have to keep that trust when you get into a conflict, because we will get into a conflict on some stage, and then it's important that we have built trust in between.
And the kind of trust that we're discussing here now is not the individual trust. It is an institutionalized trust.
Yes.
I mean, there could be a different labor minister or a different leader of the employers' organization or the laborers' organization. The trust would still be there because it's institutionalized amongst us. And the results that gives, it speaks for itself.
Yeah.
It contributes to well-functioning economies, and that's the reason why we put so much effort into this.
It's sometimes called the Nordic supermodel. So in Norway we have made tripartite collaboration work for us in our own way. It's not necessarily possible for other countries to simply adopt our way of doing things. Every country has its own culture and way of doing things, but still, the fact that we have gathered here today confirms that we believe in this model. But what would it take for this model to work elsewhere? The floor is open.
Well, just to start with, I think one of the key issues here is a high level of organization on the worker side, but also on the employer side. It's difficult to imagine how you can build this kind of collaboration if you don't have, if I didn't have my members to back me through all these discussions. I have to have a mandate to negotiate on behalf of my members, and I would guess that is the same on Ole-Erik's side as well. So a high level of organization, I think, is the most important.
Yeah, and the loyalty is very important, because you have to have many people being loyal to the system, and if we to our big organizations, the loyalty will rise. But I think it's very the question you're asking is very good. Is this a model for other countries? Yeah, in the Nordic countries, everyone is using it. I think it's something everyone should take a look at. When I meet my CEOs in the biggest Norwegian global companies, they often tells me that I miss the model in the other countries where we are operating, because it's a model for trust. It's a model for developing the companies. But in Norway, we take it for granted. But out in other countries, I think many of them could have been luckily should try it. I mean, they should try it.
What about you, Hadia, when you meet politicians in other countries? Do you think they can adopt our way of doing things?
I'm sure that the same way that we can learn from other countries, and perhaps there are things that we can export as well, that is knowledge that we have acquired through many years, and experience that we have acquired through many years. And I really have to second what Peggy said about having a well-organized labour market and a high level of organisation on both sides. It contributes to representation, to legitimacy, and it makes sure that the results that we actually get is democratically well-founded, because it is representing such huge amounts of people and many businesses. So in that perspective, from a governmental level, we've introduced doubling the tax deduction in Norway for trade union dues in just 2 years, because we want to contribute to getting the organisation level in the labour market up. making sure that we are strengthening the social cohesion in Norway and not weakening it in the years to come.
Thank you very much, Hadia, Ole Erik, and Peggy.